Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror thriller film, Species Part 2. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins in space, where Captain Patrick leads his space crew, Anna and Dennis, on a space expedition to Mars. Afterward, Patrick descends from the spacecraft and lands on Mars to release the rover and let it harvest the soil they need. Their whole expedition is broadcasted worldwide, and Patrick delivers a motivational speech that his achievement as the first man on Mars is for all humankind. Patrick is a renowned son of a U.S. senator and is also a football star at Yale besides being an astronaut. The soils that are harvested are placed in each capsule, and Patrick brings them back to the spacecraft. Anna and Dennis welcome Patrick back on board and applaud his great service to the country. Afterward, the U.S. president calls them to congratulate them on their successful expedition. Next, they place the soils in a freezer panel, but one capsule thaws and beaks open, where a gooey and elastic creature emerges from the container. The creature slithers on the floor and attacks each crew, resulting in their disconnection from radio contact to mission control. Meanwhile, an institutionalized professor watches the news broadcasting the contact gap from the space crew. He screams hysterically and destroys the television. He claims he warned them not to go to Mars, but they ignored him. 7 minutes later, the space crew reconnects contact with mission control and subsequently proceeds to go back to Earth. Back on Earth, Dr. Laura meets Colonel Burgess and the 3 generals for another test trial. She first briefs them about the extraterrestrial vulnerability experiment, which aims to discover a method on how to defend Earth in case of an alien invasion. Then she introduces Eve, who's formed from a frozen lab embryo and is also a genetic duplicate of the original Syl. Laura strictly maintains the facility man-proof to prevent Eve from direct contact with hormone-rich men, which explains why Burgess and the generals can only watch behind a tinted room. Afterward, Laura initiates the test, where a toxic gas is sprayed onto Eve. Eve receives blisters from the toxin, but her body adapts and regenerates instantly. The trial is a failure again, but the generals encourage Laura to continue the experiments. The trial now ends, and Laura enters the glass chamber to check up on Eve. Eve wonders if they only perceive her as a laboratory animal. Laura apologizes for the painful trial, but she reassures her that her safety is completely considered during experiments. Eve then hopes that they don't forget that she's also a human. Meanwhile, the space crew returns to Earth and receives a preliminary health inspection from Dr. Orinsky at Oldham Space Center in Maryland. Strangely, the test results conclude they're all healthy, but they still need to undergo quarantine for 10 days, which means they're prohibited from committing any hormone activity. Next, the space crew attend a fundraiser held for them. The senator declares an opening speech to the guests, telling them his dream to expand expeditions into space is fulfilled because of his son, Patrick. However, throughout the fundraiser, Patrick misses out on the speech because he's busy making out with a woman. Dennis searches for Patrick, and Anna guesses he might be feeling unwell too, like her. But Dennis ignores her concern and says they only need some love to recover. The senator finishes his speech and calls for his son on the stage. When Patrick hears his name, he abruptly ends the session with the woman and goes on the stage to deliver his speech. After the speech, Patrick meets the woman again for an unexpected threesome with her sister. While Patrick engages in the hormone hide-and-seek, Eve feels their hormone magnetic fields as her body sweats profusely and her pulse goes berserk. Suddenly, the 2 sisters die as their stomach inflates and give birth to half-alien, half-human babies. They mature rapidly as kids in a matter of hours. Patrick then brings his fat sons to a shed owned by his senator father. The following day, Patrick tells his father that something is wrong with him since he arrived from Mars yesterday. He wants him to listen and help him with his problem because he's scared of what's happening in his body, but the senator only ignores his plea and reminds him to behave and concentrate on their political goal to make him the next U.S. president. Meanwhile, at the Oldham Space Center, Orinsky requests to meet the professor in the psychiatric institution because of an important discovery. However, he shortly dies from disembowelment caused by Patrick's seemingly alive blood, which forms an alien claw to gut his innards. The next day, Laura reports to Burgess and the generals about the death of Dr. Orinsky. She also finds a combination of alien-human DNA on his wounds, but Eve is obviously innocent because she's locked in the facility. The only plausible explanation is there's another alien out there who's preying on people. Laura suggests they conduct a normal investigation first, such as listing the possible suspects, and test their blood for verification and confirmation of their involvement in the crime. The generals then consider her suggestion and decide to summon Preston to assist on their alien hunt. Soon, Burgess meets Preston, who's now an owner of a private sector that maintains diplomatic security nationwide. Preston automatically refuses upon learning it's another alien hunt, but he eventually agrees after Burgess bribes him with money and tax exemption. Later on, Burgess and Preston barge into the facility without Laura's permission. Laura gets mad at Burgess for disregarding her regulation within the facility and immediately asks them to discuss it outside the lab. Unfortunately, it's too late, for Eve has already seen Preston and something inside her awakens. It turns out, when Eve was created, Laura dampened her mating instinct and only activated her human side. Moreover, Eve can't leave the facility, otherwise, a toxic capsule would explode in her head to dispatch her instantly. The small talk between Laura and Preston grows into an argument, prompting Burgess to intervene and remind them that they need to work together as directly ordered by the Pentagon. On the same day, Laura and Preston visit the professor in a psychiatric institute to learn why Orensky wanted to see him prior to his unexpected death. Soon, Preston and Laura meet the professor to interview him about his knowledge about the aliens in Mars, and the professor willingly tells them everything he knows. It's revealed that the professor conducted research focusing on a Mars meteorite discovered in the Antarctic in 1996. They determined carbon-based elements were in the fossils found within the meteorite. These elements only exist in the Magellanic Galaxy, which is 100 million light-years away, which implies that there once was an alien civilization on Mars. The professor believed a specific alien species invaded the thriving planet of Mars approximately 1 billion years ago, which resulted in its downfall and extinction. The professor tried stopping the US government from continuing the expedition to Mars because the suspected violent alien species and their DNA might still be on the planet, and if it ever made contact with humans, it could engender biological contamination. However, the government only ignored and fired him from Stanford. His termination from his profession provoked him to assault a Pentagon general, which eventually led to his institutionalization. Laura proceeds to ask for his insight about why Orensky called him, and he gives a confident answer that the call meant to prove that he was right about the aliens on Mars all along, because the alien species that destroyed Mars is now brought down to Earth. Afterward, Preston and Laura return to the facility and appeal to Burgess for a manhunt for the 3 astronauts so they can do blood analysis and verify if they are a carrier of an alien. Burgess reluctantly agrees because it involves Patrick, but he still lets them search and test Patrick first, since their 10-day quarantine is about to end and procreation might soon be inevitable. At night, Preston and Laura lead the manhunt and visit Patrick's house first, but he's missing because he's currently in a cabin in the woods with his girlfriend. His girlfriend insists on letting go of their hormones, even though he's feeling unwell. Next, Preston and Laura arrive at Anna and her husband's residency. They discover an alien tentacle extending straight out from Anna's inflated stomach onto her husband's face. Preston shoots the GPS tentacle and Laura sprays toxic gas onto Anna's stomach, but they're too late because the couple are dead. Fortunately, the second team successfully locates Dennis on a yacht with a woman and delivers him to the lab for blood analysis. While waiting for the blood result, Burgess asks Dennis if he knows what happened during the 7-minute contact gap in space, but Dennis answers he doesn't remember anything. Burgess then asks when was the last time he saw Anna, and Dennis replies that it was during the fundraiser. Preston Grinley reveals to Dennis that Anna is dead, and Dennis deduces they suspect him of murdering her. Just then, Preston receives a call from Laura, confirming that the alien human DNA in Anna's body varies from the DNA found in Orensky's body. Now, the culprit narrows down between Dennis and Patrick, but then Dennis's blood test result shortly comes out to show he's clean from alien infection. Burgess then dismisses Dennis and asks him to report to them immediately if he finally finds Patrick. Meanwhile, Laura accompanies a pathologist to conduct an autopsy on Anna's body. Suddenly, a large tentacle emerges from Anna's mouth, and the pathologist quickly slices it off using an electric saw. The following day, Patrick finds his girlfriend dead with a hollow womb on the bed and his hybrid son in front of him. He wants to end the misery, so he blows up his own head, but it only grows back and regenerates. He's unaware that Dennis is watching him from afar, who runs to the facility quickly to report what happened. At night, Dennis visits the facility and reports to the group about Patrick's regeneration. The discovery points them to Patrick as the culprit for Orensky's death and the source of alien infection. Dennis then asks them why they were sent to Mars, if it's dangerous in the first place, and Preston explains the government ignored the warning. Laura adds that the alien came from the soil they gathered from Mars, which helps Dennis to recall that during the contact gap, he felt it was terrible. Moreover, an important discovery takes place between Eve and Patrick. Patrick is controlled by his alien side, and he mates religiously with more women, where he ends up with over 20 fat sons, hiding in his father's secret shed in the woods. The next day, Laura meets Burgess and the generals in the facility. Burgess wants to use Eve to help telepathically locate Patrick, but this comes with a price, because allowing Eve to use telepathy means awakening her dormant alien genetics via cyclotron. Once Eve feels her alien genes, she becomes stronger, angrier, and her mating drive increases. However, Laura disapproves because the process is painful and regards Eve as a human too, but Burgess forces her to do it since it's her job. The gentlemen leave to give Laura time to work, and Laura visits Eve teary-eyed because she doesn't want to hurt her again. But Eve says she can do it, so she can help her. Her consent allows them to begin the procedure. During the procedure, Eve endures the pain until she finally connects to Patrick's mind, where she sees everything. Through this method, Laura successfully learns Patrick's current destination and immediately updates Preston and Dennis, who are on the lookout for the road. Unfortunately, the downside of this method is Patrick can also sense Eve, who's definitely concupiscent. Patrick then willingly surrenders to Preston and Dennis so he can reach Eve for mating. Preston and Dennis deliver Patrick to the facility, despite doubting his true intentions of surrendering so quickly. At the facility, Eve and Patrick lock their eyes on each other, triggering Eve's mating instinct. Patrick tells Laura to release Eve, but Laura refuses to follow. Patrick then attacks Laura to force her, but Preston arrives on time and repels Patrick by spraying toxic gas onto him. Meanwhile, Burgess discloses to the senator everything happening to Patrick and demands him to help capture Patrick. The senator already foresees the military is going to kill his son, so he reckons Patrick is possibly hiding in his secret shed in the woods. At night, the senator visits Patrick in the shed to apologize for doubting and ignoring his plea for help. They reconcile and embrace for a moment, triggering Patrick's human side to surface. However, Patrick's alien genetics fights back and resurfaces in his body. Patrick then heartlessly kills his father and shortly returns to the shed so he can assist his hybrid sons to enter their cocoons. At the facility, Laura discovers the alien DNA rejected Dennis during their expedition because he has sickle cell disease. The alien species are vulnerable to human genetic diseases, which helps Laura to grab the opportunity and utilize Dennis's blood as a weapon against the alien species. However, during their discussion, Eve escapes from the facility to reunite with Patrick. Instantly, military soldiers work together to stop Eve from escaping, but she only heals from all the gunshot wounds and proceeds to run away. The group in the military immediately pursue Eve, following her to Patrick's secret shed. Laura then incorporates Dennis' blood into a toxic gas, and the group uses it to spray onto the cocoons hanging in the ceiling, causing all the cocoons to die as Dennis' blood kills them. Meanwhile, Eve and Patrick morph into their alien form and mate the moment they see each other. But Preston and Dennis find them in a room and quickly intervene to stop their hormone exchange. Eve finally breaks free from Patrick and attacks him after hearing Laura tell her that Patrick is behind her. Eve extends her spine to pierce Patrick, but Patrick only throws her onto a wall and kills her instantly. Laura bellows a cry as she witnesses Eve dies before her. Patrick approaches Preston next to attack him, and Dennis directs Preston to stab his leg with a pitchfork to coat it in his blood. Preston follows the instruction and then hurls the pitchfork at Patrick. Patrick weakens and shortly dies as Dennis' blood slowly infiltrates his whole body. The movie ends with Burgess and his men escorting the group outside the shed. Dennis is brought onto a chopper, while Preston and Laura watch as Eve's human body is being carried into an ambulance. The problem arises when Eve's abdomen inflates rapidly, which means Eve is still alive and is about to give birth to a baby with Patrick as the father. At the far corner of the ambulance, one of Patrick's alien sons quietly watches Eve, who screams loudly as she gives birth to her fat alien baby. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.